Hi, my name is Aaron, and I am here with Dr. Brooke Struck, who is a policy analyst with Science Metrics Incorporated. Dr. Struck, Brooke, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Tell us a little bit about the work you do at Science Metrics and why it's important.
Okay, so first of all, Science Metrics is a research program evaluation firm. We use both quantitative and qualitative methods to assess programs. When I speak of quantitative methods, most of what we're doing is called bibliometrics. So we're working with databases of peer-reviewed publications and looking at the metadata to figure out who is publishing, what are they publishing on, what are emerging research topics, what are interdisciplinary research topics, and questions such as that. On the qualitative side, we're using surveys, interviews, document reviews, and things like that to try to get a sense of what is going on in that ecosystem that's causing the kind of quantitative findings that we have. So that's the work of Science Metrics in a nutshell. We work mainly for governments. We work extensively for the Canadian federal government. We also work for the National Science Foundation down in the States and for the European Commission.
Awesome, awesome. You're often contributing to the Science Metric blog, and you're very active on Twitter.
Yep.
What do you see as the value of using social media to communicate?
So one of the things that I find about science policy is that obviously policymakers are really very taxed. Their time is extremely taxed, and they have to make decisions in a short time frame. And there's a lot of willingness and a lot of appetite to make those decisions evidence-based. One of the challenges, though, is that it's not always clear what evidence is relevant to the question that's being asked, and how the data should be prepared and how it should be analyzed, how the results of that analysis should be integrated into the operational context of a client. Appreciating that their time is very, very taxed, we need to create some critical distance between what appears like the sort of slam dunk way to conduct a study that might seem at first to be really promising, but might not necessarily be the right way to go. It's important to open a critical distance there to be able to have a discussion. What is the right study that's going to respond to this question? And social media for me is a really important way to open that kind of critical distance. So I'm often very informal, and I have fun with my work on social media. And I think that that's really important. The kind of colloquial atmosphere that I create is there to serve a very important purpose, which is establishing that critical distance, making sure that we don't get so sucked into our work that we forget that maybe we're taking the wrong path, and it's important to ask questions around. So obviously Twitter is a very short form way to do that. So it's a lot of quips and a lot of quick commentary, and then I use the Science Metrics blog to explore topics in a bit more depth and get beyond just asking the sort of pithy and provocative question, hopefully to unpack what are some of the complexities of what it is that we're dealing with. How might we take a step back from the work that we're doing and assess its value and come to a bit more of hopefully a humble conclusion about what its value will be for the work that we do in science policy.
So your recent blog posts have been on using big data and data mining in policy. What's the one sort of finding or topic that you really have been surprised about?
Right, so there have been a lot of other studies that were also done on data mining in a policy context, big data in a policy context. Already we're seeing the shift towards AI in a policy context and exploration of what that might hold. And there are a lot of other studies out there that have reached some interesting and valuable conclusions. But what I think is unique to the work that we have done on this topic is specifically about how quick the iterations are when you're looking at data mining projects and big data projects. So one of the things that makes them so promising is that they're so flexible. We don't need to put together a data collection plan that will be rolled out over the process of years in order to create the data set that we'll work from to answer a policy question. The promise is there that the data is already out there, it just needs to be scraped and enriched and structured, and then we can start conducting our analyses. And that promise is wonderful. The flip side of that flexibility to be able to go out and, in a sense, go fishing for what's available is that there are a lot more unknowns in the process. There are a lot more questions that need to be answered along the way. So with these rapid iterations of going out, scraping a little bit of data, processing it and analyzing it to try to understand how the data operates. That feeds back into revisiting the question that we're asking, the operational question that drives the study in the first place. We need to know X because we need to make a decision about Y. We revisit that question constantly in these iterations. So that's one side of the coin. The other side is that in virtue of the fact that we have these rapid iterations, we need to have a much tighter collaboration between the evidence providers and the evidence requesters or the evidence users to ensure that as we go through those iterations and we revisit the study question, we stay on track with what is relevant to the operational context of the people who are going to use it. So for instance, at Science Metrics, my role in particular, part of it includes keeping tabs on what's going on in the science policy scene, especially here at home in Canada. But as much as I can follow in general what's going on in science policy in Canada, that cannot be a replacement for a deep understanding of the local operational context of a specific client. So specific clients need to be more engaged in the process of setting up the study design for evidence that will ultimately inform the operational decisions that they will make. And our organizational structures and cultures are not set up for that. So the fact that we have scientists and policymakers working in very segregated organizational units creates a barrier between them that impedes this kind of iteration and the collaboration that needs to happen across that boundary. And in terms of our own firm, we are external to government, and so what's creating that barrier is procurement rules. It's actually the relationship of how a request for proposals is built in the first place, and how the description of a project can evolve once a contract is in place that impedes us from being able to collaborate with our clients as closely as we want to, and even as closely as some clients may want to. So those early adopters who are really on board for tight collaboration and rapid iteration, they too feel the strain of being constrained by what the public procurement rules allow in terms of the evolution of a project.
Interesting, interesting. So then what do you feel is the value of an event like CSPC?
So coming back to this theme that I've been hammering away on of interactions and iterations, I feel that those kinds of iterations or those kinds of interactions, getting to know each other is really facilitated by CSPC. So within the science policy scene here in Canada, this is the premier event in terms of getting to know who's doing what and who are the major players in which domains. Not just knowing who they are and identifying them, but actually being able to sit down and have a conversation with them, to talk to them about their work, but also to talk to them about who they are as people. You and I were discussing a few moments ago that this is a really great community that we're in, that this is not a conference like many academic conferences that can seem to lapse into blood sport from time to time. This is a conference where people really seem to be here to collaborate and to work together to improve issues in science policy in Canada. And that influences all of the interactions that we have with people who are here. It's a very rich intellectual sphere, but it's also a group of people that is, it's a group that's populated by good people. It's a nice atmosphere to be in and to feel that we are all working together towards these common goals.
I agree. So where can interested viewers learn more about the work that you do?
So the first is the Science Metrics website. That documents the major reports and studies and research projects that we do as a firm. There's also the Science Metrics blog, where we talk about the work that we do in a more informal way. We also explore some stuff there that never makes it into a report. You do a study for a client and you find something along the way that's really interesting, but just not within the boundaries of what the project was about. Well, we don't want those good ideas to die on the vine. We want them to find new life somewhere, and the blog is often that place. So the Science Metrics blog is somewhere where you can follow our work, and I'm a very regular contributor to that. And we're also active on Twitter, both the Science Metrics corporate account, but also my personal account. I'm very active there as well, talking about science policy, talking about politics, talking about bibliometrics, and a little bit of everything under the sun.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Dr. Streck.
Thank you.